Hi, everyone. Two quick updates before we show the Angie Lau interview. Two things have changed since we recorded this. First, FTX has moved their headquarters from Hong Kong to the Bahamas. And second, China has announced an extension, a revision, a reiteration of their crypto ban policy, cracking down even further on cryptocurrency in China. Enjoy the interview. Angie Lau, founder and CEO of Forkast.news. We're so glad to have you here on Real Vision today to talk about what's happening in Asia, where you're based, and also to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing with Forkast.news here at Real Vision. Angie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ash.
Angie, first, tell us a little bit about Forkast.news, where you're based, and what you're doing.
Forkast.news was born 3 years ago, and everybody thought I was crazy. I had just come out of Bloomberg as one of its global anchors based in Hong Kong. And I had seen the emergence of an alternative asset class. The kind of coverage it was getting was not necessarily the kind of coverage that you and I, or really all our friends in this space are, at least from the traditional, institutional, and professional side, are simply used to. And being in Asia and seeing the activity, both on a regulatory, both an environment, both on an innovation level, where you've got the VCs on one hand, the developers and the talent on the other, and all combining into this really interesting story. I used to say that business was one of the most exciting stories of our time coming out of Asia, and just seeing the incredible growth of China over the past decade. I've spent the past decade here in Asia. But now I'm going to replace that, Ash, with blockchain technology, crypto, and digital assets. This is some of the most exciting stories of our time. It has implications beyond finance on a societal level, on an institutional level, on a government and political level, and most importantly, on a human level. And so Forkast was really born to translate this for a broader world, for a mainstream world of decision makers. It's critical to know what's going on the ground in Asia. It is what is driving a lot of the trends that emerge and what ends up on people's lips right now on this show with you.
Yeah, that's so well said. And that was precisely what I was hoping we would talk about. You are on the ground in Asia, have been there for a long time. You understand East and West, being based at Bloomberg in Hong Kong. What's the current state of play on the ground in Asia with blockchain? We try to follow it here from Real Vision. Obviously, I'm based in New York. I don't have the on the ground view that you do. What's happening there right now?
So the headlines that usually, the West pick up on are mostly geopolitical. It's very, top headlines, right? Evergrande is a great example of that. Here, China is, from a regulatory point of view, stamping down on tech. Evergrande, they've been experiencing debt issues for the past year. I mean, it's just not this. And, flagging suddenly that China's not going to step in, that these debt issues are going to be Evergrande's own. There are things bubbling underneath the surface, and then it becomes like this big headline, right? But Asia is more than China. Asia is an amalgam of so many different cultures and so many different sovereign nations that are grouped together in what is a collective journey. I mean, if you take a look at the landscape of the Asia Pacific, often we cover APAC ex Japan, right? Markets ex Japan, because it's, that's a different market. That's a developed nation. That's part of, the developed world. What's exciting about Asia and why this is correlated to crypto is that these are emerging markets. These are emerging and developing markets that are essentially looking at blockchain and crypto technology and seeing opportunities to leapfrog. And so when we started covering blockchain and crypto and digital assets from our vantage point in Asia, those are exactly the kind of stories, but on a high level that was really interesting at the time. Hong Kong and Thailand, cross-border trade. What is Cambodia doing? What is Vietnam doing? What are the projects coming out of Vietnam? What are the projects that are landing in the Philippines? All of these have geopolitical tailwinds to this technology. And the adoption that we're seeing in Asia, just percolating under the surface of these major headlines that you're more familiar seeing. What is exciting to us is that we're recognizing demographic shifts. We are recognizing internal economic conditions that make it super interesting for this innovation and this technology to actually take hold. One example that I can share with you is Axie Infinity. We covered Axie Infinity months ago. And now play to earn is on the lips of every VC looking for a hot, investment right now, right? This is a thing. And suddenly it's burst onto the public stage. Well, quite frankly, these are the type of stories that we're super excited about because quite early on we saw, wow, look at the adoption that's having in the Philippines. This is a country that has been ravaged by COVID economically. This is a country that most of its GDP depends on remittances from abroad. Domestic economy is for at least people is really in many instances a tragedy. You make more outside of Philippines as a domestic helper than if you were college educated and trying to make it in corporate Philippines. That's not always the case. That's probably a broad brushstroke. I'm probably going to get killed for, a lot of specific instances where that doesn't happen. And it's not my intent, but the stat is that 70% of the adult population in the Philippines is unbanked. This is liquidity looking, this is illiquid wealth looking for liquidity. And this is where this is super exciting, that this technology allows suddenly this bridge to liquidity, this bridge to generating income and wealth. And when we saw, and people kind of often wonder, like, what, Axie Infinity, and immediately the adoption in Philippines, and just showing an example of how quickly, if something works, that mass adoption model can quickly take hold as well.
Yeah, so many important points there, Angie. Asia, obviously a complex, diverse, heterogeneous place, lots of different stories happening. One of the interesting things that I find about the story happening in Asia right now is this rapid development timeline. We're seeing, particularly in developing Asia, the development of wireless technology, the ability of people to do things on cell phones. And one of the things that's interesting about the United
100%.
States and Europe developed much more slowly over many generations, some might say over multiple centuries since the Second Industrial Revolution. Things happening in developing Asia so quickly, an entire generation of young people being empowered by technology. How is that playing out? You mentioned some of the games, the play to earn scenario, but what else is happening in terms of point of sale, banking the unbanked, and with the development aspect of this rising technology wave?
That's a great question. I mean, look at some of the projects that are coming out of Asia. Luna, for example. This is a South Korea project. One of the founders is an e-commerce veteran and saw the opportunity to use blockchain and crypto to actually fuel an experience for people without them actually knowing that crypto or blockchain has anything to do with it, and marrying those two things. To your point, Ash, that mobile generation is a super important narrative that I think is lost on a lot of people. So I'm super excited that you picked up on it. Take a look at China. You've got probably a 1.4 billion population where close to 1 billion of that population is active on mobile. I would say 3/4 of that mobile, connected generation accesses internet mobile first. Okay. That's China alone, right? And you take a look across the landscape, Take a look at Myanmar, for example. We often forget the story, the economic story. I mean, everybody's talking about, obviously, the political story. But I was in Asia when Myanmar was still very much a hermit nation, very closed. And suddenly, with the embargoes being lifted and the engagement back with the West, and that military junta essentially capitulating and opening up its borders, for a journalist to actually be in that country and watching this unfold in real time was extraordinarily exciting.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.